Let's go ahead and get the committee, administration, education, full committee in session. Thank you, everyone, for being here as we begin. And to begin with, let's go ahead and have the clerk do roll call.
Representatives Baum, Bulso,
Here.
Butler, Fritz, Gant, Gillespie, Haston, Hurt, Jones, Lafferty, Love, McKenzie, Parkinson, Reagan, Ritchie,
Here.
Stevens, Warner, Vice Chairman Slater, Chairman White.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Members, anyone have an announcement or recognition? We have a couple confirmations and a couple presentations today we'll get to in just a moment. May I recognize anybody that want to recognize anyone? Looks like we're all good. Well, one thing I like to do in the education administration, since we're here to make wise decisions for the children of our state, is let's bow our heads and have a prayer for the children of our state. Most Holy Father, we recognize that you are over all things, and we thank you for giving us the opportunity on this committee to make wise decisions for the children of the state. We ask that you protect them in their schools, that you be with their teachers and administrations, and protect their lives, protect their ability to teach the next generation of children, and use us in that capacity to help support that. We come through the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Okay, let's go ahead and go right into business. We have two confirmations for the University of Tennessee. I'd like to bring up Leader William Lambert to the podium, and then we'll go to Representative John Gillespie to make introductions of our guests. You are recognized, and go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will keep my remarks brief. I know you're going to hear from the candidates in a moment, but I do have the pleasure today of carrying a resolution for Mr. Lane Wiseman. He is a former former counsel to the governor, and don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves there, but also an accomplished attorney, a former basketball star at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. His blood bleeds orange and would make a phenomenal member of the UT Board of Trustees. He is also a dear friend of mine. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I hope that y'all will consider him for confirmation today. And I certainly can attest to the fact that he would do us a fine job in this capacity.
Excellent. Thank you, Leader Lambert. And before we bring them up, Representative Gillespie, would you introduce your guest?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to introduce Mr. Brad Box to be reappointed to the Board of Trustees for the University of Tennessee. He was originally appointed back in 2019, but prior to that, he's had quite the experience with education matters in the state. He is also quite the accomplished attorney and has really worked with really kind of the who's who of the entertainment and sporting world, representing them, but I believe he will continue to do an amazing job on that board, and look forward to hearing what he has to say. And thank you so much for willing to serve again.
Thank you, Representative Gillespie. Gentlemen, Mr. Box, Mr. Wiseman, could y'all come up to the table? And while you're doing so, members, we're out of session. I would like to invite each of you to say a few comments to the committee, after which we will have any questions of each of you for a few minutes, and then we will have a vote on the consent calendar for the both of you. Let's start with Mr. Wiseman. You are recognized, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here today. It's so good to be back and to see so many friends here today and to be here. I would especially say I'm glad to see all of you. I'm particularly glad to see Representative Gant is here with us. I would say that I had a brief stint on the UT Board of Trustees years ago before I was honored for the governor to ask me to serve in his administration. And I'll say that service on the UT board is one of the highest honors of my life. And I'm a first-generation college student, and so I can quite literally say that everything I have here today, professionally, my my very being and the path that I've chosen in my life is stems from the University of Tennessee. I love the institution. I bleed orange, as Leader Lambert said, and I will do my best to serve the university, but also to continue the path of having a true partnership with this body with respect to the mission and aims of the university, because it is, in many respects, as is all of higher education, the future of our state. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and to be considered.
Thank you very much, sir. While we're on Mr. Wiseman, any questions that anybody like to ask? Yes, sir, Mr. Lafferty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Wiseman, for your career at UT and your willingness to come back and serve our alma mater. And thank you for the service you've already given to our state. I've been on a couple of these with you all where we've gone through this process. And in the past, they've been pretty painless, pretty quick, and pretty easy. It's not my intention here today to make this uncomfortable for people, but it might be. I feel like it's necessary. I saw a video very recently in which someone at the University of Tennessee, very high up, had stated that there is a matrix for hiring and promotion centered around diversity, equity, and inclusion. There are people in this world that don't necessarily buy in to all of the aspects of that. I'm curious, do you think it is a good idea for the University of Tennessee, or any university in this state for that matter, to incorporate those aspects that can be divisive and controversial into a hiring and promotion process?
So I can't really speak to the specifics of what you're talking about. I'm not aware of that particular instance you're speaking of. I think diversity is a general goal is a good thing. I think where the rubber meets the road these days, and I think this body has spoken through legislation that had passed in the last session, as well as a number of years ago with the Campus Free Speech Act, that it's important that applies across the board, and that we are not that we are not a culture and environment that is hostile to other points of view, in particular conservative points of view. I have a son that's a graduating senior there this year, and of course, as a parent, that is something that's very important to me. And what I would pledge to you is to understand how this body has spoken, and what your values are, and that our university would reflect the values of our state.
Any follow-up, sir?
Just one follow-up. I agree with you 100%. Diversity. And when I got to UT, it was really neat for me as a political science major to be in classes with folks from literally all around the world, and made friends with some of them along the way. It was fantastic. When I was growing up, college was a place where you went and got exposed to diversity. And again, I think it's a fantastic thing. I think it's the ultimate goal probably of not just, any good-hearted person, but ultimately where we'll end up. I see too many instances of mixed marriages, and they have these beautiful children that grow up loving and not seeing color, and that will continue to evolve. My concern about the evolution with using it as a matrix by which to hire and to promote is it will lead to a culture where no one is allowed to have a different view, and perhaps we will start driving people away from the school that are talented that we want to have, and it may create a culture in which that is the only thing that matters. If you'd like to comment, great. If not, I've made my piece, and appreciate you taking a minute, and appreciate you again for being willing to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. What I would like to do at this time is, I should have done this originally, let's let Mr. Brad Box also introduce himself and say a few words. And that way, as you have questions, they can both answer if they need to on a particular issue. So, Mr. Box, welcome. You're recognized.
Thank you very much. Like Lang, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. In August of 1987, I packed up pretty much everything I had, and I left Parsons, Tennessee. I can't talk today. Parsons, my hometown of 2,500 people, and I drove to Knoxville, a campus of 25,000 people. And it shaped everything about my life, over those next 4 years. And just like Representative Lafferty said, diversity to me means exposure to all sorts of perspectives, ideals, not indoctrination in any way, but the chance to see all sorts of cultures, perspectives, and it was amazing for me, and it absolutely changed my life. And the university is a key part of that. So much so that 2 of my 4 children are students there. My oldest son graduated as an ag business major last May, and he's in law school at UT now. And our daughter, our only girl, is a sophomore at UT. And so it's vitally important to me, and to preserve, and as Lang said, it's the highest honor I've had in public service to have the chance to serve on the UT board, because it means so much to my entire family. And I agree with everything you said, Representative Lafferty. If diversity means preserving that all ideas, all perspectives, no matter what they are welcomed and allowed to be presented and shared so that we all can experience them, but in no way that someone should be forced into a place or a position or a promotion under some type of matrix. I don't believe that's appropriate.
Thank you very much for your comments. So from Parsons, Tennessee, right?
Yes, sir.
The home of Jim Ayers also. Wow.
Jim Ayers and my dad were childhood best friends. And if you ask Mr. Jim about David Box, he will tell you that David Box saved him from drowning when they flipped a John boat in Beach River one morning when it was about 2 degrees outside.
Wow.
And my dad's been gone for 14 years, but Mr. Jim and I still reminisce about those old duck hunting days.
Wow, how neat. Thank you so much. I'm going to go to recognize Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for your willingness to serve. You know, I know these boards, people may view these as nice, lofty, prestigious things, but at the end of the day, there is work. It's work to keep the university moving on. So thank you all. And to you, Mr. Wiseman, I know, you know, I'll say I'm still trying to understand the angle my colleague from Knox County was coming from. I tend to struggle with this angle sometime. But in terms of your career, I think you were part of history in terms of the University of Tennessee being the first SEC school to hire African-American basketball coach. And you were part of that freshman class, right?
I was, and I was. Coach Houston's birthday was, I guess his 70th birthday was a few years ago, and as part of his celebration, Alan asked us to send videos to him, and that was the theme of my video. Was that little did you know at that age, we didn't really know what we were a part of, and it wasn't until you got much older that you realized what you were a part of, and you look back through that now with a different lens of some of the things that he had to endure, and that we had to endure in ways we didn't know any different. But that was a very special time in my life to be just a part of that family.
May follow up.
Yes, and this is probably to both of you all. So in terms of, you know, I've served on some boards, large and small. Let me ask it this way. Do you view your role as a trustee on part of a major university that exists in multiple cities to manage the day-to-day affairs of the university, or to take more of a corporate and global view on the direction of land-grant university like the University of Tennessee?
My own view is that it would be a mistake to get involved in the day-to-day aspects. I think the board is to set a culture and a tone, and to manage the people who are the right people in those places. I mean, it's to get people in the right seats on the bus and to manage the overall direction of the university and to make sure that there's a certain culture that is in place.
I would agree with that, and I think that's the mark of a great leader. And we're very fortunate right now. I'm sure all of you recognize the limitless energy that Randy Boyd has and the way he works for this university and the crazy amount of money that he saves us with all he gives of his own, not only time, but he won't take a salary and spends his own money traveling. And I worry about what we're going to do to replace him when he's irreplaceable. But, you know, and I haven't even ever said this out loud to anyone, but I observe that when you look at the success a university has, you look at some key components, and it starts with the president and the hires he makes. And when you look at the hires he's made, he's done an amazing job. Chancellor Plowman is incredible. And then on the athletic side, her decision to hire Danny White, and then AD White's decision to hire Josh Heupel. I mean, that's a perfect example of incredible leadership and just some amazing hires. And, you know, we hadn't talked about it, but applications for UT are up 40%. The hard part for us. So I tell you, that says something, because that means families like mine are desperately seeking for the kids to go to UT. So that tells you we're doing something right. And when I say we, I mean the legislature, because Randy contacts us and he lets us know what you all are saying to him, what your concerns are, and we talk about it. And I think that's another example of how well he's running the UT system.
President Boyd, your name was mentioned. You want to defend yourself? Yeah, I was going to let him keep talking there for a while.
I
No.
didn't know he was here.
I agree. I think we have not only a fantastic president, but our chancellor is the UT system. And so we're going to be very fortunate to have you all on board. Let's go to Chairman Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. Gentlemen, we appreciate you being here, first off, to suffer the slings and arrows, as well as putting yourselves forward to do a very difficult job being a trustee. The UT system is a big system. Most of us talk about UT and instantly think of just Knoxville, but it is multiple campuses. And since President Boyd's in the back, I'll compliment him on the job he's doing in handling that. However, some questions, and I, like my colleague from Knox County, I intend to make this one somewhat difficult for you to answer. The budget document came across my desk. I opened it to the allocations for the University of Tennessee, and there's this paragraph about diversity, equity, inclusion. That says that in 2016, the legislature defunded that particular office, and then below that, it's got all zeros for funding on that. Right next to that is another report on my desk that lists 18 people in the UT system that are involved in diversity, equity, inclusion, part-time. In some cases, it's got parentheses after their name. One of them was in agriculture. I can't remember the exact title, but a fantastic sum of money there. I think $1.8 million. Now that report, of course, has a viewpoint, but nonetheless, 1.8 million, even if it's part-time, you know, devoted somewhere else, doesn't line up with zeros. So how would you propose to handle that?
You're recognized.
I'm not personally familiar with the numbers you're talking about. It's my understanding that the diversity offices at UT have historically been compliance offices, and it's a much bigger topic, but I think one that I would love to put on all of your radars, and that's the accreditation process. And UT is forced to follow along with a lot of accreditations that come from national organizations, and we need to take a look at it as Tennesseans and whether we want to do that. But I could talk at length about that, but I mentioned my son's in law school, and it's a concern for me that for him to practice law outside of Tennessee after he graduates from UT Law, he has to graduate from an accredited law school, and that means the American Bar Association. But what if we as Tennesseans don't agree with the philosophies and principles of the ABA? So I think there's a lot we have to look at in that regard. My understanding is UT spending on diversity, equity, and inclusion is less than 0.5% of the university's budget. And historically, it's been to navigate that just sea of compliance requirements with all these various accreditations.
I'm not personally aware of that, but I certainly would pledge to you that we'll look into that and certainly be mindful of your thoughts in that regard.
Follow up, please.
You follow up, please.
All right, well, thank you for those answers. It is an issue of concern for me personally, as well as a number of my colleagues, from the standpoint of the mission of the university. In fact, any of our education institutions has to be centered on the students. We, the taxpayers, and those of us watching taxpayer dollars, are paying to have a good citizen graduate with a skill set coming out the end of the university doors, that they are able to contribute successfully to our economy, to our society. And things that do not go directly into that are frankly a waste of taxpayer dollars for the most part, some exceptions perhaps. But that's a major concern. And to the president in the back there, thank you for being here, President Boyd. We appreciate it. And I will close with saying that both of my children graduated from UT, my own studies, some of them are there. So, and there are 4 campuses, satellite campuses in my district. So I really like UT. But on the other hand, they're paying me up here to watch taxpayer dollars. And so my major concern is that the dollars that the university are spending, whether they're coming directly from the state or from endowments or wherever, are spent well and in accordance with the desires of our citizens in this state. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Representative Parkinson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just sitting here soaking it all in. First, Lang, and thank you guys for being up here. You know, I honestly hate that. I'm honestly not happy with the fact that the line of questioning for your reappointments to the board went this direction. And President Boyd, I understand your reasoning for sitting back there in the back out of the way, but your bright orange jacket is giving you away, so you're not hiding. you know, right? You know, we have the finest university system in the country, and UT is a beacon for what universities should be. We have a great president. We have great members of the board, and I'm sure you guys will be put back on the board. And and we have a great direction with the university. Our universities are putting out the finest humans that one can ask for. You know, it's a huge system, and having the opportunity, and whether, regardless of what your background is, having an opportunity to be considered for, whether it's for employment, promotion, or anything else that is happening, at our universities is a great honor. And I'm sure that from the pool of individuals that you all look at, consider, there are people from different and varying backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, experiences, and I'm thankful that you all consider the diversity of these individuals, whether they're applicants or individuals being considered for promotions, and it's unfortunate. And it's unfortunate that, we here in our legislature, this becomes the major issue when there are so many more major issues that we can be looking at, like how can we get more underprivileged students into our university system, or how can we, build on our R1 rating, with Carnegie? How can we come up with the next big technology that will save someone's life or save someone from cancer, or how can we put out the best doctors, nurses, dentists at UT Health Science Center that we can possibly put out? How can we as a state support what the university is doing? And I think that's where our focus should be. And no disrespect to my colleagues, because they are sent up here by a group of individuals that want them to ask these questions. But I do believe that there are more pressing situations, more pressing issues that warrant our attention, and that would allow us to be in more of a support mode, support mechanism for UT and our other universities to make them the best, absolutely best that they can be. And so thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for presenting yourselves. Appreciate
Well,
it.
thank you. Committee, I have 3 more on the list, and I'm going to try to wrap this up in the next 5 minutes. We do also have 3 excellent presentations that we want to get to during this committee. But let me go to Representative Jones. Sir, you're recognized.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. As I sit here listening to these questions and answers, I just think about the students back in the UT system who come from diverse communities and how they feel by some of the comments made today. And I ask that we pause and think about how students who are marginalized feel when we continue to politicize their identities and their communities. I think that it is abhorrent that we turn something that I was just going to vote yes on into this circus of attacking diversity and attacking people like me. I think, I'm the one who was most recently in college. And when I think about the issues impacting our students, I think of mental health. I think of college affordability. I think of access to resources. And so,
One sec.
and so my question is, since I'm being
You're recognized.
silenced,
Go ahead.
and since my question is making people uncomfortable, my question is, what way are you as a member of the Board of Trustees soliciting student input and student voice? How are you making yourself accessible to students to hear their actual concerns instead of people who are elected who have no relationship on the campus, who are not on the campus day to day? How are you listening to students and faculty who are being impacted by laws, by legislators who could care less about student well-being and who instead want to win political points? How are you listening to the students on these campuses and having their voices heard in the decision that you're making as a Board of Trustees? Because that to me is the number one constituency group that we should be listening to as in your position is the students who are the constituents of the university and UT system.
Thank you, Representative Jones. Members, I'm going to keep, as chairman, I'm going to make sure we keep our comments focused. We all here are equal. We can ask our questions, but let's keep this to the tone of what we're here for today. So let's go ahead, and gentlemen, you may address the question, and then I'm going to go to Representative Fritz.
I would encourage you to, if you haven't already, follow our chancellors on social media. It gives you a daily indication of how they're listening, and I think you'll be amazed at the ways in which they spend time with every possible student they can sit down with. And I know, I think of Chancellor Plowman in particular, she sets hours every week where she opens her door and lets any student that wants to talk to her come in her door and speak. And I think that's amazing. Maybe the first time I've ever heard of a university chancellor of that size offer herself that way.
Thank you, sir. Let's go to, unless you have a comment, Mr. Wiseman. Did you have a follow-up, Mr. Jones, that you wanted to ask?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I would like to hear from both prospective, board
Mr.
members.
Wiseman, you're recognized.
And also, I just wanted to clear, my question is, how are you as Board of Trustees members soliciting student input and hearing students, not just the chancellor, but how are you going to be accessible to students or listen to their concerns or be available on campus and have those relationship with the student body?
So I'm not currently on the board, so I can't speak to what the current practice is. I would agree with Brad in terms of the accessibility and availability that I have seen even as a board member of the campus. It's my understanding that that the university regularly conducts student feedback and does student surveys to look at students, and certainly students are an important constituency, but there are other constituencies of equal importance at a university. My pledge is to make sure to find a way where all students are welcome, and that we find a way to have an appropriate balance of all viewpoints of all persons. That's frankly, that was important to me as a student when I was at UT as a first time college attendee in my family, to be exposed to so many different things and people from different places, and people who thought like me and people who didn't think like me. It's very important to have that environment in a safe way for everyone to be able to participate. So my pledge to you is to be mindful of those things, and to have regular conversations with my fellow trustees and with the administration to make certain that we're being open to those principles.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make a final comment?
Very quickly. Okay.
I just want to note that we are talking about making sure all viewpoints are heard and that everyone is welcome. And I just want to mention that I was the only one who was attempted to be silenced by members of this committee.
Okay. Let's go to Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, thank you, gentlemen. First, go Volunteers. And thank you for being willing to serve. I am convinced that the University of Tennessee campus is, if not the best, one of the best looking campuses in these United States, and I'm proud of that. We just need a little more orange. And
You can never have too much.
I would ask just a simple question. And is your objective, or one of your primary objectives in this role, to provide an institution of higher learning that supports the liberty and prosperity of all Tennesseans through promoting the ideals within our Constitution?
Absolutely.
Emphatically, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Representative Warner?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to go back in session.
Okay, there's a motion before us to go back in session. Any objection? With that, we're now back in session. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I'd like to put my comments of support into. I've known Mr. Wiseman for many years down in Memphis, even before he came up here, or I came up to the legislature. And Mr. Box, I've heard nothing but such fantastic things about you. So thank you all for offering of your service to our state and to this great university. Members, at this time, we are going on the consent calendar. We are going to, do I have a motion to? We got a motion in a second. The motion will be to move to the calendar and rules. All those in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. It moves to calendar and rules. Thank you for your time. Very, very much. Thank you, President Boyd, and all. We have all the UT chancellors here today, I believe, and all, and Noah and Josh and Carrie and all y'all. Thank you. Okay, members, we have a couple of presentations that are of importance. And so I'm going to invite up the University of Memphis University School to come up to the, Ms. Parrish, good to see you.
Hi, it's lovely to see you as well. Chairman White, committee members, thank you so much for having me here today. My name is
And,
Sally
members,
Parrish.
we are out of session. You're recognized.
Sorry.
No, that was my fault.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead.
Chairman White. Thrilled to be here with you today, and thank you so much for making time for me to share a little bit about the great work we're doing over in Memphis. As Chairman White shared, my name is Sally Parrish. I serve as the Associate Vice President for Educational Initiatives at the University of Memphis, which is a really long title and way of saying I work with our pre-K through 12 school programs and partnerships on campus at the U of M. I am also a proud product of our public education here in the state of Tennessee, all the way from kindergarten to my doctorate, and I'm very grateful for the difficult work you all do in this room. I'm going to skip a few slides to save y'all a little bit of time today. And just wanted to tell you a little bit about who we are at our university schools and the ways in which we can serve you and the citizens across the state of Tennessee.
Dr. Parrish, may I interrupt you for a second? I need to recognize the president of the University of Memphis. I didn't do that, Dr. Hargrave. Thank you for being here today. Also, I looked up and this bright orange and blue, it just, sometimes they don't stand out as much, but thank you so much for being here.
Our
Dr.
blue
Parrish?
is a little more subtle, but our president's leadership is not, and we are grateful to have him at the U of M.
Yeah.
Many of you may know we have had schools at the University of Memphis since the University of Memphis existed. So for over 110 years, when we were the West Tennessee Normal School, we have had children learning in classrooms on our campus. And for many years, that school foundation was found in our Early Learning and Research Center and in our campus school. In recent years, we have grown that school compendium to a full pre-K through 12 school system that is operated by the University of Memphis. As part of that program, we have 3 programs that serve early learning ages beginning at 6 weeks. One of those programs specifically serves children with special needs and autism. Our campus school runs now K through 5. We opened a kindergarten in 2020, and we have about 400 students at that campus school program, which now feeds into University Middle, our on-campus middle school, which is a project-based learning school in grades 6 through 8, and then University High School, which opened this fall as a dual enrollment program, serving 100 students per grade per year, and they will all graduate the University of Memphis with 36 hours of academic credit in a discipline that is workforce aligned and at no cost to those students. And many of you may not be aware, but we exist in code as training schools. And so part of our mission is not only to provide high quality public education for the children of Memphis, as well as research and laboratory learning opportunities with our world-class faculty, but also to provide a training experience for teachers in training and other practitioners in training across a variety of disciplines, ranging from STEM to nursing to speech and communications to social work and counseling, and of course, our incredibly talented teachers. We work very hard to ensure that we are a resource to the entire teaching profession across the state of Tennessee. And part of why I'm here today is to offer our university schools to you all as a training school site and as a laboratory school site in service to the state of Tennessee for any pilot programs, research programs, or observation that we may be able to support. So as I shared, we have 6 schools. We have over 1,000 students across those 6 schools. That will grow to about 1,500 students as we fully enroll at our high school. We have an incredibly diverse student population. Our students are roughly 53% white, 47% students of color, which very closely mirrors the population in the state of Tennessee. We serve children from 35 local zip codes. And that's one of the things that makes our school community so unique. And so we may have we have students with incredibly diverse family and socioeconomic backgrounds. We have very different familial makeups in the home. And all of those students get to come together in this incredible experience across our university schools. That school experience has been celebrated at the local, state, and national level. Our campus elementary school is currently a State of Tennessee Reward School. They've been designated as a Blue Ribbon Elementary School by the U.S. Department of Education. Our elementary school and our middle school are both designated as trauma-informed schools by the state of Tennessee as we support student learning in their many capacities across our campuses. And then lastly, Campus School is a STEM designated school for the state of Tennessee, and we're seeking that designation for our middle and high schools as well. And so I know that you all probably have some questions about, okay, that all sounds great, but does it work? Right? And so I wanted to bring some snippets of academic data to share with you so that you could see the impact of the academic experience across our university schools. Prior to showing you that data, I think one thing I really want to point out to you is that we do not have an academic requirement for entry across our university schools. And so students do not apply with test scores or GPAs. There's no essay, there's no interview, there's no rec letters. It's just public school, y'all. And we fully believe that what we do within our buildings is so impactful, and that we are doing it in such an intentional way, driven by data, that we can help any child to succeed across our schools. And I think that's an important misnomer to debunk, that there's no cherry picking. These results are as a result of what happens in those school buildings, not because of who we're admitting onto our rosters. And so one of the greatest challenges that our teachers face every year, and I'd love to shout out our teachers in saying this, is that they are faced with the challenge of teaching students across such a vast spectrum of knowledge and ability and familial supports. And they do it artfully every single day because they keep the child as their number one priority and as their number one focus. So with that, I'll show you our data. So we are the best schools for reading in the state of Tennessee. So you'll see here, 68% of our students collectively across our schools have either on track or mastered their reading data in the most recent TN Ready assessment. This, I wanted to be very transparent and share our collective school data, but I also want to flag for you that University Middle has only had 2 years of testing data ever. And so because of that, you'll see that middle school data is combined with our elementary school data. If I extrapolate the elementary school data for you in each of these, that elementary data is significantly higher. And that's really an effective, we've had a school there for 110 years. And so we're trying to ensure that that continuity of education continues up through our middle and high schools. But as you can see, the combined data is quite good. If you were to pull the campus school data alone, and ELA for last year, it would be 85.4%. And I just got to pause there because that is unheard of.
Say that again.
Well, thank you, Chairman. I think I will. 85.4%. And I'm telling you, I meet children every year. My children go to that amazing school. I meet children every year that join us at campus school and they can't read. My kid was one of them. And the magic that happens in that building, and it's not magic, it's skill, right? It's training, it's hard work. It pays off. And so we know that we can do this hard work in Memphis, and we're thrilled to be leading that charge. Our mathematics data, as you see, is at that 53% on track or mastered, which is the 94th percentile for the state. We are actively working very hard to raise that number. Again, if you extrapolate the campus school data alone there, it's 77.3%. And so we've put a number of supports in place this year to enhance our math data and are on track to increase that significantly. Top 5% in the state in social studies, and 99th percentile in science. And that number is not something you're seeing going up on a national trend. And so we're really proud of that data as well. And so when we worked with our researchers at the U of M, we wanted to calculate a success rate that reflected the number of students who were either on track or mastered in each of those content areas divided by the total number of tests taken to come up with a one standardized success rate number. And so you'll see our university schools, if they were treated as a standalone school system, K through 12, our success rate would be 64.48%, which is second in the state behind Williamson County. And so one of the challenges that we face as a training school compendium is really that the demand significantly outweighs our capacity to serve children. And so our current waitlist numbers are over 1,500. And as I shared with you, that's more than the total enrolled students in our schools right now. And so one of the heartbreaking parts of my job is that we're not able to serve that 1,578 kids sitting on our wait list right now due to a number of different factors. But wanted to transparently share that with you as some of these are your constituents. And I think that's important to share. There's an unmet need there in Memphis. And so I do have more detailed information about each of the schools, but I thought at this point, I would pause and see if you had any specific questions for me about the schools or our school model that I could help you with.
Thank you, Dr. Paris. Very, very well. Let's go to Representative Gillespie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sally, it's so great to see you. I represent not the actual physical location of the school, but I have dozens and dozens and dozens of constituents that have either children or, well, I guess they're constituents that attend there from all a variety of learning levels and needs. And it's just such a wonderful place. So I just wanted to go ahead and just publicly say that first.
Thank you.
And how much we appreciate you. So I guess I really want to just ask you, big picture, the things that y'all are doing, whether it be the elementary, middle, or high school, what kind of academic programs do you all currently offer or have been offering that are really aligning to set those children up to be in the future workforce, whether that's attending the University of Memphis or a TCAT or, we're talking about Blue Oval City. There's lots of exciting activity going on in West Tennessee. And I know that y'all are doing a wonderful job for my constituents, but I just would, if you could just elaborate that to the rest of the committee members that are not from the Memphis area, that would be great.
Absolutely. Happy to. Thank you for that question, Representative Gillespie, and for your continued support of our schools and our city. It's a great question. I have a little bit of context I can provide. And so I'm going to start at the high school space, but I do think it's important as you talk about workforce alignment and education, that is a thread that should weave throughout the entire school experience. While I'm starting at the end at the high school, do know these are pieces that we really begin as early as our early childhood program. So as I mentioned, our high school opened this fall. We have met with industry leaders across the state and really focused on industry leaders in Memphis. We've met with our Chamber of Commerce representatives. We've met with academic leaders and researchers on the future of work. And what we have done is we have identified specific clusters of academic focus at University High School that are workforce aligned. So we know what are the top workforce needs for the next generation and how do we need to prepare these high school students to be successful in those career fields. And so after those workforce conversations, we started having academic conversations with faculty and deans at the university, as well as employer partners within the community to create specific academic pathways that consist of a minimum 3-course sequence where students will get really in-depth, hands-on exposure learning, research, work-based learning in order to better prepare themselves for those future workforce needs. I heard our governor share earlier this week that we need to rethink high school in our state. And I think that we're a great example of what that looks like and would offer that once these clusters and pathways are stood up at University High, they can go anywhere. Right. And these are state approved academic programs. And we're not making them up. And so, once we have this framework established, we would love to help in your communities and your schools to see these same pathways serve additional students across our 95 counties. I will say to the point of Blue Oval City, I came to the state of Tennessee as a product of an automotive manufacturing plant relocating to Middle Tennessee many moons ago, and know firsthand the impact that can have on a child's education and on a community. And we are thrilled to be working alongside those Blue Oval City partners to identify some of those pathways that could better serve their workforce needs as well.
Thank you, Dr. Parrish. And I'm getting ready to go to Representative Hurt, but could you just give us with that high performance rate, your instructional approach on how you do this?
Absolutely. So all of our teachers are supervising faculty. And so they have faculty status at the university, and we really empower them to take ownership of what student learning looks like within their classroom, but within the guardrails of the approved materials and state standards set forth by the state of Tennessee. And so our teachers work very closely in concert with one another in communities of professional learning, with professional development supports and constant coaching from really seasoned school leaders and professionals across our schools. And so our elementary focus is very rooted in literacy and brain-based learning. And we believe that sets a very strong foundation across the remainder of our continuum. And at middle school, we focus on project-based learning and that hands-on experience. And then in high school, our focus is really on preparing students for the world of work and dual enrollment. But again, there's no magic secret sauce. It's incredible teaching. And when we see a student isn't succeeding in that existing model, we wrap around that student in every way we can to provide them the supports they need to be successful.
Thank you. Representative Hurt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for being here and thank you for the services you're providing to those students. Those numbers are staggering. And I know everyone appreciates it. You made it clear earlier that you are a public school, that you don't pick and choose long waiting lists, but y'all provide services to a variety of students, obviously. Being that you're a I guess university school. There was another name that popped up there on the slide a minute ago that you said y'all fell under. Explain to me your funding. How's it funded? Y'all are a public school in Shelby County? Are y'all funded the same as other public schools in Shelby County? Kind of how does that work with what y'all are doing and what you're providing?
That's a great question, and one that we often continue to seek clarity on, if I can be very transparent. We receive state and local funds passed through our LEA. We receive no federal funding, and most often any sort of special funding or specific grant funding that is designated for an LEA or charter is not accessible to us. And so we do not have the same per pupil funding as any other local public school in our district would have according to their released budgetary figures. But what I can tell you is that we're incredibly good stewards of those funds. And we have a very, very lean administrative staff so that we can invest every possible cent of that into our student experience.
Follow up, sir.
Thank you. And I guess that's even more of a thank you for doing what you're doing with what you're doing and the services you're providing and the results you're getting. Those are, again, staggering results. So thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. As a matter of fact, members, last year we passed legislation, and you may want to address that. We met with the university school because of those high performance numbers about how could you expand your model within our community and the state. Would you like to address that a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Chairman White. So those numbers on the wait list are not numbers we're proud of, right? We would love to be able to serve every student that has an interest in learning with us at university schools. We're really constrained in two ways in terms of resources. One is just a physical space capacity. Our schools are embedded within the University of Memphis. They're on campus at the U of M. So like our parents, drive into campus every day to drop off and pick up their children. So that's one, we have physical constraints there and don't receive specific capital project funding for those school buildings, which is a challenge we've navigated for 100 years. And then the second piece of that is that we are currently capped in our enrollment through our LEA. And so not able to extend beyond a certain maximum number of enrolled students. And so I know there was legislation passed that would allow us to explore other LEAs as partners, and as the University of Memphis continues to explore ways to better serve students across the state of Tennessee, I think that's an opportunity for us to continue to have dialogue with each of you about.
Thank you. Resident Love?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for a wonderful presentation. Like so many of my colleagues, I'm just so pleased with the results that you are producing. Did have a question. May have had it answered by Representative Gillespie over here. The relationship with the university is with the faculty, correct?
Well, we are one and the same. We are of the University of Memphis. So the schools are operated by the U of M on U of M property under U of M policies and standards. I'm a U of M employee and graduate. Go Tigers. Our teachers are as well. So we consider those students to be University of Memphis students. Now they may be 5 years old, but they're our U of M students too.
Follow up, sir.
Thank you. And to that point, do you see or can you track students going from the various levels and staying with the system?
That's a great question. As this is our first year of opening a high school, and to be honest, the middle school only opened in 2019. And so that data of where our fifth graders were going when we had nowhere else for them to matriculate to, that data has been very difficult to nail down. And so we have been working with the research team so that now that we're going to be able to progress all the way through a student's 12th grade year, that we will have that data long-term so that we know their destinations as they leave our university schools. And our hope is that those high school students will graduate prepared to attend any university in the country, any institution they'd want to attend, but that they'll choose to stay at a Tennessee university, ideally the University of Memphis. But we're going to have them prepared to go anywhere across this great state so that they can have that next step in their education and stay here and be a part of our workforce.
Sir?
Last thing, thank you for that. There is a another president in the building of a university in my district. And so I may be connecting that president with your president to see how we may be able to have a model like this in Nashville to create the same type of continuum. Because I'd love to see that. I was just perusing through the Focus Act, and I think the Focus Act allows some institutions to have K through 12 on the campus or sponsored by the university. So I love this, and I will definitely be in touch with the three of you all.
We
about
would
that.
we would welcome that, Representative Levin. I'll tell you, we did just host our colleagues from East Tennessee State University a few weeks ago, and they're the other training school compendium by code here in the state of Tennessee. And I think I speak for both of us when I say we are very open to helping other communities to do that same good work.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Chairman Reagan, bring us to a close and we'll move on to our next presentation. Your name's not on there. You want to be on there? Okay, we'll put you on there. Okay, go ahead, Chairman Reagan.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try to keep my comments as brief as possible. They're mostly questions. They revolve around the transportability of your methodology. The numbers that you put up are very impressive. But unfortunately, statewide, we're nowhere close to that. In fact, I think you had a number of 60-some% over. What was the number on literacy? 68%, yes?
There you go. Mhm.
And we have statewide numbers indicating that 66% of our third grade matriculating to fourth are not reading on grade level.
Mhm.
So what is the difference in methodology between what you are doing and what we need to do in our other schools?
That's a great question. I think there are a number of answers and would, as a short answer, welcome you to come and observe, and we would be happy to host you in the school and have done so for other committee members and leaders. A couple of things I'll point out. That focus on brain-based learning that we employ at campus school is really critical because we teach our teachers and teach our students how the brain operates and how students actually absorb and learn information before we start trying to teach them that information. And so we do spend multiple weeks at the beginning of the semester teaching about learning, not teaching content, but teaching how to learn in a classroom. We have teachers who are incredibly well coached and very dialed in to specific student needs, and we aren't conducting constant assessment in a formal sense, but student learning is always being assessed and being monitored. And the second that our teachers see that a student could utilize extra support in an area, that student immediately begins receiving that intervention. There's no team called in to assess. There's no formal meeting to come up with a plan. Those teachers are empowered to ensure that every child in their classroom can be successful. And so because of that empowerment, the teachers do exactly what they need to do to be able to take care of each individual student where they are. And what that means sometimes is a pull out. It means a push in. It means an after school. It means a before school. So for us, like the school isn't just from 8 to 3, right? School is the life, that education is the life of that child. And we will engage as fully in that process as a family will engage with us to support their children. I know that is not scalable everywhere because not every school system operates with that culture in mind. But for us, when we hire teachers and staff, that's the expectation, and people join our teams because they want to be a part of that.
Sir, you follow up?
Yes, as I indicated, I had 3 questions. That's the first one. The second one is related to that. I want you to, you mentioned some differences in your student body, the demographics and so forth. What about the demographics of your faculty? In particular, we get the EPPs, education preparation providers, turning out shiny, brand new teachers that go to one of our elementary schools or wherever. And what is the difference between their preparation and skill sets and those in your school?
Great question. So we host a number of resident candidates within our schools. And so oftentimes those teachers that we're preparing as students at the University of Memphis become teachers within our schools, which is just a really unique part of our training school culture. Our faculty, every new faculty member in our school gets a mentor. Every grade of faculty, they are in a professional learning cohort. And then all of our disciplines meet and have alignment across various disciplines. So there are a number of opportunities in which coaching, mentorship, supervision are happening. And then as employees of the university, we do encourage our teachers to continue pursuing their education as an educational benefit they get with their employment and support those efforts in every way that we can. The last thing I'll say is that we really believe in teacher planning and cross-planning across grade bands and across disciplines, and build in that planning time very intentionally into our school calendars so that the teachers have all of the time they need to artfully practice teaching without being time constrained in their ability to do so.
Okay, sir, one more, then I want to get General Brower up here before we make sure we have plenty of time, but you're recognized.
All right, the last question is related to accountability of the teachers for student performance. You mentioned that teachers can, when they see a need, can instantly react to that. And I assume in some respects that's because maybe teacher-student ratio and maybe your mentor to teacher ratio, which may not be possible in other schools. But nonetheless, even on Olympic teams, some team members are better than others. So how do you judge your teacher performance?
Absolutely. We hold teachers responsible for their student data and their student performance. We believe that every student can be successful in our schools, and we hold our teachers responsible for ensuring that student success. Now, we know there are a number of factors that come into that, but we've had to have hard conversations with teachers where we say, hey, your student data before they came to you was this, and now their student data is this. Can we talk about what's going on? What supports do you need? What professional development can we offer you? What interventions? We do a lot of classroom observations in our schools, and we're really lean. And so that takes a lot of staff time. But we do, and frankly, we've had difficult conversations with faculty where we've said this may not be the right fit. And I think that's okay. They can still be incredibly talented teachers, but that model of real full scale wraparound teaching that we provide may not be for everyone. And so we coach them as much as we can, and a majority of our teachers thrive in that environment. Some do not.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll cease questioning at that point.
Thank you. And
Invite you to come by my office, though.
Oh, would love to.
if you can hang around a little bit after committee in case any members, and I'm going to let you wrap it up, sir. And then General Brower, would you make your way up and we'll move right on into you after this last question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And fortunately, Chairman Reagan, my brother from another mother, took most of my questions anyway. But I did have a question. First of all, congratulations on your successes.
Thank you.
One of the questions is, tell me about admissions, student admissions. How do we admit students?
Yep. Students apply online. We do it before the optional school window opens within our school district so that families can really maximize their choices. We don't ever want anyone holding out for a spot with us knowing those waitlist numbers, so we try to do it in advance. Everyone applies. There's no academic data entered. We do look at attendance and conduct as measures of commitment, but not necessarily as make or break facets of the process. And then students go into a lottery. And there are various lottery weights for if you live in the radius of the school, if you have a sibling attending the school, if you are employed at the institution. And to highlight that one, that means like if you're on either end of the compensation scale at the university, right? So we have the person who repairs our air conditioning, our HVAC tech, his children go to our school. We have deans who send their children to our school. It's the full gamut of employment at the institution. So some of those weights get factored in. And our goal is that we are able to enroll from both the faculty, staff, student population at the U of M, the 2-mile radius surrounding the campus, and then the larger community in equal thirds.
Okay. Real quick. Okay.
So I want to make sure that we're not, when we look at these numbers, the numbers are great and I applaud them, but that we're not, pulling the cream of the crop in student populations to get to these numbers. So are we getting the regular kids?
We're getting the regular kids.
Okay.
My kids are regular kids. And I'll tell you, we pride ourselves on that. An area we noticed is that we had not had a campus school kindergarten program for 100 years. And that was impacting who could join for first grade, right? And so we said, well, let's just add a kindergarten and fix that and try to level that playing field a little bit more. And so we made that investment in our program. But there's no academic, unlike optional schools in our community and in other communities across the state, there's no academic requirement. And so we truly have no idea what the student's academic proficiency is until they're literally sitting in our classrooms.
I went to University of Southern Cal for Head Start, so I know how y'all can't y'all tell how good this works, right? But so thank you again, and
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Parrish, thank you so much. President Hargrave,
Thank you.
Katie, thank you all for being here. Swing by my office, 624. I've still got your daughter's picture on my desk.
Do you
Yeah,
really?
I
Oh,
do.
yes.
Yeah, they live one street behind me, and so
Yep.
there's always kids in that neighborhood. I just love it.
Will do.
All
Thank
right.
you, Chairman White.
General Brower, if you would come up. Members, we now have the Vanderbilt University Bass Military Scholars Program. Chairman Reagan, you're going to love this. So we've invited General Scott Brower here today to tell us about that program. You're recognized.
Chairman, I may real quickly. Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Daniel Culbreth. I serve as Assistant Vice Chancellor for State Government Relations for Vanderbilt University. Appreciate the invitation today. As the Chairman mentioned, I'm joined today by General Scott Brower. General Brower served as the director of the Bass Military Scholars Program at Vanderbilt since 2021. Following his graduation from West Point, General Brower had a long and distinguished military career. He spent time with the U.S. Army Special Operations Command in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and served in the 5th Special Forces Group stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky for more than a decade. He served in Desert Storm in addition to multiple tours in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Pakistan. During his final military assignment at Fort Campbell, he led the 101st Airborne Division and Fort Campbell's acting senior commander. Our entire campus community is very proud of the Bass Military Scholars Program, and we appreciate the opportunity to discuss it with you today.
Thank you, sir. General Brower, you're recognized. Thank you for being here. Catch the mic right there for.
Good now?
There we go. There we
A
go.
little bit slow, but I got there. Well, Chairman, committee members, thanks for having me here. I just want to start by saying thank you to you all. I grew up in New Jersey, so I'm a transplant Tennessean right now. I served at Fort Campbell for over 12 years. I deployed in combat on 6 separate occasions from Fort Campbell. And I left my family here each and every time in the care of Clarksville, Montgomery County, in the state of Tennessee. And for that, I owe you all a debt of gratitude. You created a wonderful environment for my family to live. This is an opportunity for me to give back to the state and the residents of this state. And hopefully we're meeting that service that you've given me and that obligation I feel I have to you all. Today, I want to share with you about the Bass Military Scholars Program. Some of you may have heard about it already. It's been in existence for 4 years, and it's growing, and I think we're improving it every opportunity we get. It started in 2018 with a $25 million gift from the Lee and Ramona Bass Foundation out of Fort Worth, Texas. They had a relationship with the university and a vision for helping veterans that have served our nation, that have a vision for serving into the future, and once they reach the civilian sector of society. We support graduate students in law, medicine, nursing, business, and education as they work towards those advanced degrees. What we offer is in conjunction with the post 9/11 GI Bill and a Yellow Ribbon program. So this is additive to it and hopefully makes it more attainable for more of our veteran population as they look to increase their earning potential, but also their ability to serve. The mission while they're on campus is to share their military experience with the Vanderbilt community. As we know, it's slightly over 7% of Americans are veterans. And so there's a very small percentage of us that have that distinction. It doesn't make us better, but it has a unique set of experiences that we can share with others. And so what we ask of our scholars is to share their military experience with the Vanderbilt community. That's both on and off campus. I consider the scholars to be what I call near peer mentors for the student population. They're not an authoritative figure. They're not a faculty member. They're not a staff member. They're a fellow student, but they come with a whole lot more life experience right there. And they can talk to those students in a way that faculty and staff can't. It's a different conversation that takes place. And it's very interesting to watch that transpire after a formal discussion or session with them. The undergraduates will gravitate towards them, and the learning continues well beyond those scheduled events right there. Role models, that's what we're looking for within the Vanderbilt community. I'm sorry, I'm struggling right here. I must be getting all kinds of nervous with y'all. I apologize. I'm going the wrong way. The vision of the program, we want to be the preeminent graduate program for veterans in the country. While there's many scholarship programs for undergraduate programs, there's very, very few at the graduate level. This is very unique across the country. And so in all honesty, I don't want to be unique. I want to see this shared and experienced in other institutions to provide more veterans those opportunities. So hopefully we're the plank holder for this, but it grows. I just want to share with you who are our scholars. You know, in 4 years of existence, we went from 7 to 16 to 27 to 34 scholars. That's what we have today. By next year, we're going to have 37. So that's not a huge number, but I think it is a very important number of students on the campus right now. You can see where they are going to school. Our business school is the largest attraction right there by service. The Fort Campbell connection is significant. I think will always remain Army heavy. It's about 50% of the total active force, but the proximity to Fort Campbell absolutely leads us to have many of the veterans from the Army that are coming from Fort Campbell right there. Important for Chairman Reagan right there, the picture on the bottom left, the gentleman facing us, sir, our sole Air Force Academy grad right there. All right, so there's at least one other in the state here with you. You know, we have a great breakdown between officers and enlisted members. I'm so proud that we have 11 former enlisted members in the ranks of our scholars right there, because they add such a unique perspective and a different perspective than those that have served as officers. And it's just a wonderful thing. You know, I just want to highlight real quickly some of the scholars you see pictured here. Lydia Koski, top left right there. I love her dearly. That young lady was born and raised in Kenya. She came to the U.S. on a track and field and cross-country scholarship to EKU. She earned her U.S. citizenship by serving in the United States Air Force. She had her first child right before she started nursing school, because she thought nursing school at Vanderbilt would be too easy without having a child, you know, several months before starting school. She's doing wonderful things, and her hope is to stay right here in the state of Tennessee and work for the VA or in a public position as a nurse to help others right there. I mentioned Hermes Silva, our Air Force Academy grad, also in nursing school. And over on the right-hand side, former Petty Officer Matt Smith, former Navy SEAL, that will be our first graduate this year from the medical school. He was one of the 7 original scholars, and so he'll kind of be the plank setter in that arena right there. You see Matt with his wife and child. About 50% of our scholars are married, and a little over half of them have children. So it is a little bit older student population right there, but they bring a very, very unique perspective to the campus. So I do like to talk about what do the scholars receive and what do they give back. So at this point, the Bass Foundation asked us, are we keeping up with inflation? Even a C student from the United States Military Academy identified if the scholarship is flat and inflation is going, we're not keeping up with inflation. So originally it was a $25,000 a year scholarship. This year it's $27,500, and next year it's going to $30,000. That can be used in conjunction with the GI Bill and Yellow Ribbon right there. What we also do is we help and assist through networking and mentorship opportunities. We want to connect these young men and women to individuals in the career field that they believe they want to go into. So using Matt Smith as an example, does he want to be an orthopedic surgeon or an emergency room surgeon, doctor, right? We connect him with Dr. Alex Jahanger from the Vanderbilt University Medical Center, who's the head orthopedic surgeon there, to learn a little bit more about that profession. We'll connect individuals in that manner to make sure that they are on the correct path and finding the passion and the future career that they're desiring. A supportive network. We want to be there to help. Transition can be difficult for veterans. There's not a lot of us that go through it. There's not that supportive network. We are that supportive network for them as they come out of service to make sure that transition goes smoothly. What do the scholars give back? We ask them to do service activities, 2 per semester, where they're interacting with the Vanderbilt community. And I usually air quote that because that can be the undergraduate population on campus, or we can be taking them off campus to engage with community leaders and others. What they share is their military experience in a variety of different ways. The picture on the top left is we took international students from, we had 38 international students from 17 different countries, and we took them shooting safely, all led by veterans. We had a medical evacuation plan, a communication plan, a training plan, all of that. It allowed those international students not only to interact with each other, to see that experience safely, but it also connected them to our scholars and to other students that they would not have interacted with. On the top right, Caitlin Scholmeyer, former enlisted Air Force member, interacting with other non-veteran nursing students, just sharing her experience. We go back up onto Fort Campbell and work with the Transition Assistance Program for those veterans that are coming behind us and transitioning out of the military, and sharing what's learned in our business school to help prepare the next generation of those veterans enters the civilian society in the workforce right there. Those events are phenomenal. We're doing several hundred of them a year at this point, and that opportunity to connect happens in the classroom, on the campus, and in our communities. I intended on having a scholar here with me today because I always believe it's better to hear directly from him. I had Joe Barrett lined up to do that. Unfortunately, Joe's father went into hospice care up in Ohio, and Joe's up there with his family, and I'm glad that he could be there because that's the right place for Joe to be. Joe's a West Point grad, a former infantry officer. He served in the 101st Airborne Division. He commanded an infantry company in Vicenza, Italy as part of the 173rd Infantry Brigade. Joe's worked with the Ukrainian military. He's deployed all across the Middle East. A phenomenal individual. He's going to be our first graduate out of the College of Education, Peabody College of Education at Vanderbilt University. Joe was commanding his infantry company in Vicenza, Italy, and 2 weeks later, he was in the classroom at Vanderbilt University. He gave up command. He outprocessed the United States Army. He flew across the Atlantic. He was in an airplane across the Atlantic while we were doing orientation for our program. He arrived, had rented an apartment sight unseen, and then a week later, he's in the classroom. That transition is not one that is normal. That's from an exceptional young man that desired to lead his soldiers until he couldn't lead them anymore. He put their care, the concerns for them, the mission in front of taking care of himself. We're here to make sure that he gets taken care of. That's the interconnection that I think is incredibly important with this program. Joe's going to go off into the education realm, and he's going to do wonderful things for us leading it here into the future. Why does this program matter? It's a small number of individuals here, and I recognize that. But it matters as we look across the state of Tennessee alone, right? We have a labor deficit. The veteran population, it's small, right? But when we look at it, I think it's largely misunderstood at times. I serve on 2 mental health nonprofits. I sit on several working groups that look at veteran transition right now. And often I'll talk to business leaders and they'll ask me, Scott, are veterans really broken? And that's because they get bombarded with 22 veterans a day commit suicide, PTSD, TBI. Those issues are a reality for a portion of our population. But the vast majority of our veterans are wonderful Americans that raised their right hand and served our nation. And now they're transitioning to that next step. And I think it benefits all of us when we can enter them into that society correctly. You know, Fort Campbell, Kentucky, a wonderful place I got to serve. Across our nation, about 24% of transitioning service members will stay within a certain radius of the base that they transition out of. Fort Campbell already keeps 31%, so we're doing better than normal. But we believe there's another 20% that are in play if Match.com worked correctly for them. Let's line up a community, a job, a career, proper schools, good housing for them to go to. If we don't make that match right away, they're going to default and go back home where they started because that's where the family support network is right there. But we can grab onto some of these individuals that are going to do great things for our communities, in our businesses, in our society right there, if we properly align and help tell that story. These scholars, they're shining examples of what right looks like, and they can become messengers for the rest of that veteran community that are, ready to join our society right there. Vanderbilt's figured it out. We're now hiring more veterans. We're targeting veterans for employment opportunities. We have a Skill Bridge program there that is helping those transitioning service members in their last 6 months of service while still being paid by the Department of Defense. They're learning their skills and getting an opportunity for employment at the university, and hopefully that leads to a job offer when they're done. The scholars that we have with us are helping to carry that message forward to so many people, both on the Vanderbilt campus and off. I want to say thank you for your time today, and I'll take any questions you may have. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, sir. By the way, how many veterans, military veterans we have on our committee? 1, 2, wow. Excellent, excellent. I know there probably got a couple of questions here. Also, we have Representative Parkson. You're recognized.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your service. I'm a Marine.
Yes, sir. Thank you for yours.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for keeping it cordial. Appreciate it. I do have a couple of questions. You mentioned $30,000. How far does that go in regard to the cost of tuition for that year?
So, sir, it varies by the college that they're attending. When we look at the financial numbers and we apply post 9/11 GI Bill, yellow ribbon, and that scholarship, and we incorporate not just tuition, but cost of living for our scholars. When we look at the College of Education, the business school, and law school, the out-of-pocket expense is very small. I'd say between $3,000 and $4,000 a year. When we talk about medical school and nursing school, it's significantly higher, right? Because they have limits on their yellow ribbon support. They have a $6,000 cap right now. I've spoken with both Dean Brady and Dean Jeffries at those colleges, and we actually are working to raise the funds to create an endowment that would help mitigate some of those costs to the scholar and those veterans.
And thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
And what kind of capacity do you have? How many veterans will this program be able to hold?
Sir, we expect that we're going to get to 40. That's roughly what it holds, right? Because we're living off the endowment. We're not touching that, so this can run for as long as we want it to. So that's roughly $1 million in scholarship money, roughly, each year, which would be right at that about that 40 scholar level.
Okay, and last question, the admissions process, we're talking about veterans. So, and then you have some veterans also that were part of Desert Storm, but not necessarily, part of the latest, conflicts that we've been involved in, which they don't qualify for this new version of the GI Bill. So can you talk about that a little bit?
So, sir, the first part, you talked about the college admission, right? So we are separate from that. I have zero to do with their being accepted to any of those colleges right there. We coordinate, we collaborate all the time. We have a great relationship, but our selection process is separate and dependent. So I can select somebody, but they don't get into the law school, the scholarship doesn't go to them, right? So obviously that's how that works. And I'm sorry, the second part of the question again.
Right. For those members that were part of Desert Storm, but not necessarily part of the latest conflicts, there's a different GI Bill.
Yeah, yes, sir,
Right.
there is. And I can't really do anything about that, but what we work to do, right, we work with the scholars to find every avenue. The financial aid office within each college, right, looks at what opportunities exist for scholarship and other support to those members. I think Vanderbilt University does an exceptional job of trying to ensure if they have somebody that is worthy of admission into the university, they don't want the financials to be a barrier to them, right? So we try to get creative and look for ways that we can support them.
Okay, thank you so much for what
Yes,
you're
sir.
doing. Greatly
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Members, anyone, Chairman Reagan?
Thank you, General. And I'll try to keep it cordial too.
Yes, sir.
This looks like an excellent program with excellent results. Obviously, Vanderbilt is a private institution. So what can you recommend in terms of transportability of things that we can take into our public institutions of higher learning for veterans?
Sir, I think, but put the money aside. I think it's putting things in place that recognize that veterans are a little bit different, and it doesn't make them better than anybody else or deserving of something more. But I think the handling it warrants some different attention, right? And so, and I see that in the workforce all of the time, right? So just having things set aside that maybe help them, right? And we can look at their education inside of the military, right? And recognizing that for college credits, right? That is an ungodly complex challenge that universities face and the service members. As military courses change and then university courses change, what are we willing to give credit for, right? So if you're not focused and willing to engage that population, I think the conversation, right, and communication is huge to all of this, that having people that are dedicated to looking at this challenge or this opportunity and focusing on that. I tend to find myself at the university talking about many things connected to the veteran or the military population outside of this program specifically, because I have an understanding of those topics right there. Middle Tennessee State University, Austin Peay State University have phenomenal military student centers, right, and resources for that because they have large populations of those students. I think the more collaboration that takes place to share best practices is incredibly important, regardless of where the institution is. I tell our applicants all the time, I said, my overall goal is not for you to be at Vanderbilt University. My overall goal is for you to be at the right spot that's going to lead to success for you, regardless of where that may be. Did I answer your question, sir?
Follow up?
Yes, thank you. Well, General, you did partially. I am really what I'm trying to tease out here. We have Veteran Service Organization that's part of our state government. We have other universities, as you mentioned, a couple of right there. Would it be beneficial to have a centralized location like maybe THEC or this Veteran Service Organization that does some sort of coordination? That's basically what I'm asking.
Yeah, yes, sir. I think there's tremendous value in that. I do. And I talk to THEC on occasion. From my time working with the state during the COVID pandemic, I know those folks well, and I talk to them. I interacted with them when I was at Austin Peay State University. And I think when we focus on this population, whether it's setting up, an engagement, right, to share best practices, I think there's an incredible amount of benefit to that. And having the state government involved in that, if they're a central figure, I think that could be helpful. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to wrap up with Representative Baum.
Thank you, Chairman White. I know we're about out of time. I just wanted to thank General Brower for his work on this program and work with our veterans. I'm particularly interested in finding out about it because I've got a daughter at Vanderbilt. She's a junior. She's not associated with the program, but I like the way you integrate it with the undergraduate population. And so I'm going to tell her tonight about this impressive program. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so very much. General Brower, thank you so much for giving your time. I respect not only your career, but what you're doing now and for coming over here and sharing that with the committee. And anytime we can be of value to you and your organization and Vanderbilt, thank you very, very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Committee, I've asked Tennessee Cheese to come back next week since they have enough time to make their presentation. Do I have an objection to adjournment? Without objection, we're adjourned.